databases, relations, and rollups in Notion. Let's take what we learned yesterday in the fundamentals course and implement it in Notion. Welcome! If you've been following along, you know that we're in week 6 and day 37 of our 100 Days of Notion video series. Today, we'll continue what we did yesterday, looking at the fundamentals of relations and rollups and translating this into Notion. Hopefully you remember our relationship diagram that we created yesterday. We have our products, we have our customers. The customers place orders. On each order there are several order lines, and the order lines connects products and orders. To the right, we see the exact same structure, but the actual databases. We made them in Excel, and today we'll replicate this entire structure in Notion. So we have our customers, we have 4 of them. We have our products, 4 of those as well. We then have orders, and as we remember, we don't write the customer name, we just reference the ID. So number 1 here we know correspond to Bob. He placed 3 orders. The 3rd row here is customer 2, that's Mary. The 4th row is customer 3, which is Mark. If we look at the first order here, we see that the order ID is 1. That means that we can look at the order lines that's connected to that order. Every order line in this table, which has the order ID of 1, is connected to the first order. So the first 3 order lines seems to be connected to Bob's first order with ID 1. So we have the order lines 1, 2, and 3, and we can see that he purchased the products 1, 2, and 4. That means the lamp, the desk, and the chair. We have also written down the prices of each of the products he purchased and the quantities. And these means that we can make a rollup in Notion and calculate the total order sum for his order. Let's get to work and let's implement this in Notion. I'll reference back to this diagram a few times so we keep track of what we're trying to achieve. Let's first create a page to work on. Let's call the page Customers, Products and Orders. We'll make the page full width and the text small today, so we can fit a little bit more on the same page here. Today we'll just use inline databases, so we'll use databases on the same page to keep everything simple. Normally, as you know, I always recommend to break out databases into their own pages. Let's start by creating the products database. So we'll create an inline database. We'll call it products. And if you remember, we had 4 products to sell. We had a lamp, we had a desk, we had a table, and we had a chair. I don't know if you saw that there, but when you want to create a new row in a Notion table, you simply press Shift-Enter. If you only press Enter on the last line, nothing happens. But if you press Shift-Enter, you will get new lines. When we created our real diagram, we had product IDs as well as names. So we call them product ID 1, 2, 3, and 4. In Notion, that's actually handled behind the scenes, so that's not something we need to care about. We can remove the tag property. We don't need that, but we do want another property, so we'll add a new one. We'll make it a number, and we call it price. The prices for the 4 products were 10, 25, 40, and 80. Great, so that's our products table done. As you can see, I have double headings here, so we can do it either way, but I kind of prefer to hide the database title and be the master of my own structure. Great, let's move on to the customers. We do the same thing here, so we create an inline database table. We call it customers. Since we remember what we did last, we can hide the database table directly. We add our 4 customers. We had Bob, Mary, Mark, and Bianca. We don't need the tags here either, but we do want some address properties. We had address 1, and in the original one we had address 2 and address 3. Okay, good. Just some random texts associated with our customers. Great. The third important table we have here is our orders. So we take our orders, we create an inline database. We call that database orders, so we can reference it. We hide the database title, and then we add our orders. And the interesting thing here, the first column here, which is named name by default, has this little special icon, the capital and lowercase a. And that, if we look at the property here, we can see that this is of type title. Right, so what does this mean? Can we create more titles? We can't actually. Notion uses this first column to identify things in a table. It's not really an identifier. You can actually call things the same. So you can call them order 1, order 1, order 1. In a normal database, you wouldn't be allowed to have 3 orders with the same identifier. So we know that there is an other underlying ID connected to each order, but as a user using the user interface of Notion, you will never really see this. So the intent with Notion is that you use this as a kind of unique identifier, but you can of course write long texts if you want. We really have 2 options here with our orders. As you might remember, we simply called our orders 1, 2, and 3. We didn't really have a name. We can do as we did here, and we can say that we simply call the orders 1, 2, and 3, and let's be done with that. Or we could name them something fancy, or we could just use numbers. But I think that this is a good way to reference things in Notion, so we just name them order 1, 2, and 3, and then we can reference them easily going forward. Similar to the others, we don't need a tags property. We do, however, want a few other columns. So let's create a few more columns, and let's keep them as text for now for placeholder. So just to replicate what we had order ID, we had customer ID, we had total amount, and we had order status ID. Right, this one was called order ID, but apart from that, these are the same properties as we had in our diagrams. We'll get back and actually wire things up, but these are the placeholders for now. Moving on to the last table that's interesting for us today, we have the order lines. So create an inline database, we'll call it order lines, and we'll do a similar thing as with order here, so we simply call this order line 1. The tags column we can remove. The second column we had was order ID. So you can see here that if you write something that Notion doesn't recognize, you by default get a text. Each order line was also connected to a product. We also had the product price, which is a number. Product price. And finally we have the quantity, which is also a number. Quantity. Okay, good. So now we have replicated the same columns we had in the diagram. All right, let's start to organize things a little bit. So to match the structure, I'll put the products in the second column next to customers. And as you know, we can just simply drag and drop to the right of a block to create a new column. Some blocks doesn't support this. Databases is one of them, so you can't drag to the right of the database. You need to drag to the right of the title. There we have a new column. We drag the table into the corresponding column, and then we can put the products table in its column as well. And now it's starting to look very similar to what we had before. See if we can eliminate the scroll bars here to make it a little bit nicer. Perfect. Then we'll do the same here. So we'll put orders and order lines next to each other. So we have the orders, we have the order lines. We put the order lines to the right of the orders to create a new column. We put the orders table under the orders heading. We put the order lines table under the order lines heading. And we'll minimize things here as well. Maybe these actually don't fit. We'll see if we keep the columns or if we'll break it out. But at least now we can see things in one page, which is nice. If we look back a little bit at our diagram, the main focus of today is to start creating relations between these. For now, we just created placeholders in the orders table, for example. So we have a placeholder for the customer relation. We call it ID, similar to yesterday. We have the order status, and we have the total amount, which is a calculated something. To wire this up in Notion, we need to change around a little bit. So in Notion, we actually don't reference the ID of something, we reference the actual row. So we simply call it customer. Then we change the type from text to relation. And for the relation, we can then select what database we want to connect to. This is a customer relation, so we want to connect to the customer's database. We can look at the limit here, and this is the multiplicity of the relationship. So as you might remember from yesterday, we looked at one-to-many and many-to-many relationships. And by default, Notion creates many-to-many, and it's signified in Notion as no limit. We can also say one page, which is the right choice here. So we know that each order is connected to one and only one customer. The third option we have here, show on customers, is really to tell Notion if we, for each customer, want to see what orders they placed. I think that's nice, but before we turn this on, let's look at the quite helpful preview here. So here we see that the orders table points to the customers table. If we then enable the show on customers toggle and look at the preview, we can see that orders reference the customers table and customers reference back to orders. Underlying, it's of course only one relationship, but this is showing you as the user what Notion will show you. And don't worry, if you don't turn on this immediately, you can turn it on later on. So we'll click Add Relation to get this property wired up. Now you can see that the icon for the customer table changed from this text icon to this relationship icon. So for each order, we can now connect it to the right customer. So if we follow what we had in our diagram, the first order was placed by Bob, the second by Bob, and the third was placed by Mary. And Notion helpfully will list all the rows here, so we can easily select Bob. For the second one, we can select Bob again, and for the third one, we can select Mary. And as you see, the UI still stays open here, so it looks like you can select the second one. But you actually can't, so if you see here, Notion will replace whatever you place here. And that's due to the multiplicity we selected. So we selected that you can only have one customer linked, which means that the new selection will replace whatever you had before. Order status ID is next. That's something that we broke out as a table when mapping this as database tables. But in Notion, there is actually a more convenient way, and we touched on that briefly. So here we want a select property. We want to be able to select between different order statuses. So we call it order status. We go into edit property, And here we can simply add the options. Behind the scenes, Notion is probably creating a database table, but as a user, you will never see it. So that's nice and convenient. We had 5 different statuses. We had placed, we had pending, we had picking, we had shipping, and we had completed. Great. All right, the order statuses for these orders, the first and second orders were completed. And the third order was picking. Great. So now we replicated the same thing with the select property of Notion. And a thing to note here is that while this works and works well and it's what you want in most cases, you can't actually do much with these. You can set the color, that's nice, but apart from that you can't add any extra details, you can't add any more information, you can't attach any files or whatever you might want to do. So if you, for example, would like to describe what you actually mean by completed as a kind of free text description, you would need to do a similar thing. So you would need to create a new database table, you would need to reference the completed row instead, then you would be able to click on it, similar to what you can do with Bob here, and you can add more data. So for Bob, we can click on it, we get to Bob, and as we know, every row in Notion is a page, so you can add any information you want here. We see that we can add Bob's different addresses here. For some reason they're in the wrong order. And we can also add some free text or whatever content we want. Great, so our orders table is complete. The only thing missing is the total amount, and we'll get back to that. We now created the customers relation. And if we go back to the customers table, we see that we get a new column here listing the orders. So we can see that Bob has placed 2 orders, 1 and 2, and Mary has placed the third order, order 3. Similar to the other way around, we can click on the order and we get to the order page. It has a property called customer where we can click and see the orders. So very convenient. The last table to look into here is order lines. Let's look at that now. So here we have 2 relationship columns. We'll do the same thing here. We'll remove the ID. We'll change the type to relationship. And for the order, we'll link to the orders database. We know that each order line connects to only one order. We want to show them back, so we know what order lines are connected to each order. And we add the relationship. We can preview here, so it looks good. We do the same for products. So we call it product, we edit the property, we change it to type relation, we connect it to the products database. We know that each order line will talk about only one product. For this show on products property, we skip it for now. Let's start filling in the data. So we know that the 3 first orders were connected to order 1. The 4th order was connected to order 2. And the 5th and 6th were connected to order 3. Perfect. And we can see that these changes propagate to the order table as well. So we can see for each order, the order lines created here. We also connect these to the products. So the first order line was looking for a chair, then we were looking for a table and a desk, the 4th for a table as well, and then 2 lamps towards the bottom. Then we have the product price here. We can do this a few different ways. Let me show you both quickly. We have product price here, and this is actually numbers, so we can say price at the time of purchase. So we want a number for this, and let me actually move this out again. So we'll move this down so we can see it a little bit better, like that. So price at the time of purchase, and then we add a new column where we say product price. So the idea here is that we have the price at the time of the purchase, and then we have the product's current price. So the product's current price should be a rollup property. We create a rollup, and that means basically that we want to calculate something for a related table. We have two related tables here. We have order and product. In this case, we want to look at the products table, so we'll select the product. And as you can see, it automatically populated the main property of the product. So we have linked the chair here, and under this rollup property, we immediately get chair, so it matches directly. But here we don't want the name, we want the price. And for calculation, we don't really want to calculate anything, we just want to show the original value. So now we can see conveniently here the current price of a product, and then we can transfer that to the price when the order was placed. Very nice. For some reason we're sorting by price. I'm not sure really how that happened. Let's move that back so we sort by name again. Okay. And the interesting thing here is, of course, that price at the time of the purchase, I mean, you might have had some discount going on, so it might have been only 5 for these, but the current product price is still 10. These are not connected in any way. You can also do it the other way around, so you can go up to the products table. We have the lamp with a cost of 10, and we can say that now we're actually charging 100, and then that will propagate down here immediately to the product price. We'll remove that and go back to the order lines table. We have the quantity, which is just a simple number for how many was ordered. We'll just replicate what we had here. So we had quantity 1, 2, 5, 5, 1, 1. And using this, we can now calculate the total order line amount. So that would be to multiply these. We did that on the fly in the previous example, but I think we should try to do this here and now. We'll use the formula column for that. So we'll create a new formula property called total. We'll edit the formula, and this is a very simple one, so we can just simply click what we want. We want the price at the time of the purchase, and we want to multiply that with quantity. And done. So now we can see the total order line price. Great. So if we go back to the orders again, we have the name, customer, order status sorted out, as well as the connected order lines, but we have this lingering column, the total amount. For this, we want to go into each order line, we want to find the total, and we want to sum those together. So we go into the type, we select Rollup, we go to the relations, we look at order lines. As you know, we created this property back, so we can now select it here. We want to look at the total, which we calculated a second ago, and now we see show original here. So now it just simply lists all the costs. That could be nice, but here we want to sum them. So we go down here and we select sum. So now we have the total amount here. If you gather what happened before we selected sum, we actually have an opportunity here to list all the products that were ordered as well. So we create a new rollup column, we choose the order lines again, we choose the product property, and we say show original. So now we see here that if we minimize this a little bit, we can see that we have 3 order lines, 1, 2, and 3. They were relating to chair, table, and desk, and the total cost for all of these were $285. Here we have order line 4, a table, 5 and 6, lamp and lamp, summing up to 10. Fantastic! Now we have replicated everything we created in the diagram, but natively inside Notion. We got some extra features using rollups for different things, and we have a simple list of orders and the total amounts, as well as the order status and we can easily start shipping this to our orders for the web shop. As a final thing, since we're in Notion and since we can, I cleaned it up a little bit. So I added a cover, an icon. I added some icons to the customers and products table and cleaned things up a bit. So we have the customers, Bob, Mary, Mark, and Bianca. We have the products, lamp, desk, table, and chair. We have our 3 orders placed by Bob and Mary. And we have our order lines connecting to each order. That means that for each order, we can see exactly what order lines are contained, what products were purchased. We calculate the total purchase price, and we can then send the invoice and products to our customers. In turn, making our customers super happy, except from Bianca. She's angry that she still hasn't ordered anything from us. If you want to look at exactly how this is done in Notion, I'll post a link in the description so you can download the template. Since we're coming up on Christmas, I'm releasing it for free the first few days. Go ahead and get it. Compare it to what you hopefully created when following this video. That's all for today. Thank you very much for joining today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. Have a nice day.